Hello, welcome back to the Reading Mama. My name is Heather, Mama to 8, and I read a lot, probably too much. I'm gonna give you my May wrap up. Now, I did do a couple of videos mid-May, and so I had written them down, and I didn't bring them out here with me, where I talk about a third of the books I finished. There are 31 days in May, and I finished 30 books. Really, I finished 31 because the other one only had an hour left, and I finished it this morning on June 1st. So it's a little, it's kind of embarrassing actually to have read that many books. I did a lot of audiobooks, and I do a lot of them at high speed, but I'll get into all that in a minute. I read 31 books in May. I need to slow down, so we're gonna do that. I do, during the summer months, I have a lot more physical books because I have more time on my hands. In May, I've been doing a lot of birthday prep and house prep and school prep and vacation Bible school prep and things like that. So I've had a lot of times where I'm just working and I put on an audiobook while I do it, and I do that at 2 or 3 times speed. And so I got through a lot of books. I also read a lot of shorter books that are not super heavy. They're very just fast-paced fun. And so it was I was very much a mood reader this month, as you'll see as I talk about them. Now, when I was calculating all the books I read, I went through my little journal, which is what I'm looking at here, and I read 30 books total. 10 were physical books, which is actually pretty impressive for me to do that much. Some of them I did half physical, half audio, but I'm going to call it physical because I own the physical copy and that's what I used, or I had the library copy. I only did 1 digital book. Don't ask me which one, I can't remember now. And then I did 19 audiobooks. I purchased 8 books, but I think when all was said and done, I think I spent only $30 on books for the whole month because I got some really good deals, and that was the only reason I even purchased them. I DNF'd 6 books, so it was quite insane. And I tried to track my audio, physical, and digital and see if I liked kind of tracking that way. I'm kind of playing around with my reading journal to see what I like to track, what things I want to keep in mind, what challenges I'm doing. And so I have my May spreads here. I also have what I purchased, and then I have what I DNF'd. So let's start with the bummers. Let's start with DNF. 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. Did not like the writing style. The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. I actually started that and decided it's a not right now. It's not a hard DNF. It was just a not right now book. Spy Family. Graphic novels are not my thing. I didn't do that. I started Raven's Cove. I don't remember who the author is. She contacted me via Instagram. She's an indie Christian author. It got really dark in the very first part, so I'm not gonna continue that one. I may give this author another try. I wasn't loving it at first, but I'm willing to give indie authors another try. Us Dark Few is like really popular, but it was pretty dark. Some expletives in there. I just decided, no, I don't want to. And then Network Effect, which was book 5 in the Murderbot series, like already struggled with it because graphic audio does a phenomenal job, but the series is really funny. It's great sci-fi, but it's so much swearing, and I could get over it because it wasn't quite as much, and it's like every book has gotten exponentially more swearing, and I'm like, I'm just done with it. I don't even want to mess with it. No matter how funny, no matter how well written it is, I'm not messing with that swearing. And so I DNF'd that. And then I purchased some books, and talk about that in another video, so I'm not going to talk about that here. But yeah, so I did 1 specific reading challenge, which was the Hikeathon read with, is it Brightside Girl? I think that's her handle on Instagram. And on here on YouTube, but I don't remember her name. I'm so sorry. But she had a hikeathon reads, and I did the hiking. She had hiking or camping, and I did the hiking. So she had 6 books, and I had a blast doing that. So I'm going to put that here. I had Capture the Moment, Daughter of the Moon Goddess, King's Fifth, Betrayal of Eden, Tessa Afshar's The Peasant King, and Heartwood by Emily Gage. And they hit the prompts of Set in the Forest, Wildlife on the cover, Trail on the cover, Book with a Map, Has a Hike, and Lost in the Woods. And then I did her activity badges, Read Outside. I do that as many days as I possibly can. Visit a little free library, did that. Actually donated some books to a free library. And go on a hike, I did that as well. And so I enjoyed that very much. Now, I talked about Pittsboro of Eden in another video, so I'm not going to talk about that. But I will talk about the other 5 books on there. So I read The Peasant King by Tessa Afshar, and I am absolutely loving Peasant King. I have it here. This is my physical copy. I'm trying to read through all of Tessa Afshar's book because I started with The Hidden Prince and fell in love with her writing. I have been like put off of romance and Christian romance specifically, and Bible historical fiction. And I was like, it's not for me. That was phenomenal. They're written for YA. They're very good. This is the sequel to The Hidden Prince, talking about the main character's daughter in this one. And I really, really loved it. I've loved all the other Tessa Afshar books I've read, and she's now one of my authors I'm trying to read to zero because I love her so much. In this book, like I said, it follows Gemma, the daughter of Karen and Jared, the main couple in the Hidden Prince series. Karen and Jared work for King Cyrus of Persia, and in this, Cyrus is trying to fight the Medes so that they don't have to keep paying tributes and stuff, and they're down on their luck. They're fighting, they're doing the hard work, they're doing well, but each year they got to keep going, and they're losing money and they're losing weapons, and so they need to solve that problem. That's an underlying story. So we get a little bit of Cyrus's, not a lot, but you get a little bit of Cyrus's point of view. Karen, his main scribe, the main character from The Hidden Prince, is still the main scribe, and she goes and she gets kidnapped on a mission, and her husband and her 2 daughters go out to try to save her along with a couple of soldiers. The father is ill, he can't continue, the 2 soldiers get injured, you know, a little far-fetched yay women kind of thing, but the 2 daughters go and rescue her. Along the way they rescue the Prince of Medes, who is not actually claimed as the prince, so that's why we've got the peasant king here for Cyrus, and then you have his uncle, so to speak. And yeah, so there's some romance going on, there's a whole bunch of espionage, there's kind of survival trail type things going on as they travel from Persia into whatever the kingdom is for the Medes, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, and then they travel to Babylon and then back to Persia and all throughout. So you've got a lot of that going on, and there's just a lot of great, I love Tessa Afshar because she has so many great things that just pull on the heart, help you think a little bit deeper about things. So there are some hard issues of acceptance, of accepting who you are, what you are able to do, and knowing your own ability levels, and then also trusting God in general for life. And so that was a phenomenal read. I did read The King's Fifth. This has been on my TBR forever. This is a pre-read for school for next year. This is by Scott Odell, who wrote The Island of the Blue Dolphins, and it is a phenomenal book. Highly recommend. It's for middle grade, and it is written as a kid who's a cartographer who joins up with Coronado and the conquistadors in the search for Cibola, or the City of Gold. He goes off with another conquistador, and things happen. I love how Scott Odell deals with native people groups, because he gives you what the white Spanish people, what they think about them and their presuppositions, but he also has natives who are part of their group, and you see their point of view. You get to see them interact, and you see their benefit, even when you see that they're being wronged, you see them do wrong. He balances it really well, and it makes it very realistic, and I appreciate that. This was phenomenal. I'm really excited for my kids to read that next year. And then on here, I also have Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan. And then I read the sequel, which is The Heart of the Sun Warrior, and they were phenomenal. I did them as audiobooks, very well done. I forget who the narrator is, but these are Asian mythology. And so it kind of pulled dual duty, because I also read it for those for Maythology with Loyal to Literature, I think is her handle. And they were just phenomenal. They have you've got dragons in there, Asian mythology, and it has a lot of deeper issues also. I really feel like this one had a lot to think about in the concepts of love, and on concepts of just finding your place in the world, love of family, and love, romantic love. And so it is spice-free, and there was some kissing, I think, but there's some heavy things in there. There's kidnapping, there's torture, there's all kinds of things. It just hits like all the tropes. But there is a love triangle, so if that's not your thing, this isn't gonna be the thing for you. But I do think that she did it really well, and it ends in a way that I wasn't necessarily expecting. So I highly recommend that duology. And then I tagged these on just over the weekend as audiobooks for Hikeathon, because I saw some people recommending them. Capture the Moment by Suzanne Woods Fisher was a phenomenal audiobook, and I hope to read more from her. I noticed she does have a lot of Amish things, and that's not my thing, but the capture the moment was wonderful. It's set in the Tetons, and the main character is trying to become a wildlife photographer. She meets a ranger there who is grumpy, get the grumpy sunshine thing going on, and he helps her along her way, and through it she shares the love of Christ with him, and very good, very well done, very clean romance, where romance really, it didn't feel like it was heavy romance, that's a plot, but it wasn't the only plot. We also have some kind of poaching ring going in the story, and so I just really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, it was beautiful, and I loved the story, and it was my favorite book of the month, actually. I also read Heartwood by Amity Gage, and this would be my favorite book of the month, except for the swearing. Come on, people. Heartwood follows multiple points of view, very much like the movie Vantage Point, I thought. I had several of those, actually. That movie's just on the mind this month. But Heartwood follows a woman in her 40s who is trying to hike the Appalachian Trail, and she goes missing. And so you get her writing in her journal. You don't really know what's happened to her, and you have the ranger looking for her, and then you have some of the people that she hiked with. You get some of their testimonies in there, and it was gripping, it was thrilling, it was surprisingly an interesting story on relationships between mothers and daughters. There were some really profound moments in it, and I just really, really enjoyed it. Highly recommend, if you can manage to, if you're reading the physical book, it would be easy to cover up the swearing, but in audio it's just, an assault. But still, I really did love it otherwise. Other books that I read for Maythology, I did Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, and I talked about that in another video, and I did Lovely War, and I talked about that in another video. Lovely War was wonderful and lovely. Ariadne was dark and depressing. And so that's kind of what happened there. I had several historical fiction, and I'm just going to list them and share which ones I want to. So I talk about Lemort Arthur, and another one, Lost Roses, which is World War I, but more focusing on the Russian Revolution. The Women of Oak Ridge, which talked about women in during World War II in the secret cities here, where they were making the things for, what in the world? Sorry, outside, noises everywhere. And it talked about the women in those secret cities and had a very mystery vibe going on. Other historical fiction was Peasant King, and then I read Remember Me in a buddy read with Jane at Jeanette Reads and Alma at Alma's Book Journal. Why can I not remember, Emma? I'm so sorry. I really need to just write it on here. Anyways, we read Remember Me by Mario Escobar, and by far my least favorite Mario Escobar. It follows the Spanish Civil War, which I didn't know much about, so it was interesting. However, you have everything that possibly could and did happen to people during that time, and to children and families, they made happen to this one specific family, and it was very choppy, and it was just it was not enjoyable reading. It was not great writing. I don't know if that's a translation issue or if that is just the way the book is. It was choppy. It was also very depressing and not quite believable, because every single thing that could go wrong went wrong. And I know that all those things happened to people during that, but to one family, it felt a bit much. Anyways, it was pretty depressing. I'll still read some more Mario Escobar because I've loved his other books, but that one particularly I was not a fan of. Going into my fantasy books, I read The Fairest Beauty by Melanie Dickerson. I talked about that in another video. Betrayal of Eden by Aaron Phillips, which I talk about in a lot of videos because I love it. I talked about the Sue Lynn Tan books. I also read Truth Cursed by Angie Dickinson, which I loved. Truth Cursed, how do you describe? Truth Cursed is a great YA romance. The romance is very subplot. And it's very much like Ella Enchanted, kind of. And so you have a girl who's been cursed to always tell the truth. And not just that she has to respond with the truth, but she has to respond to any question, or she feels violently sick, could have seizures, all these things. And she becomes a spy in the kingdom because she has been told that her family has been wrong. That's why she's an orphan, because the kingdom is corrupt. And so she's going to spy and try to get proof of this. But she has this curse, and being forced to tell the truth is not a great option for a spy. And so you have things that happen along the lines. It was very well written, very fast paced, very quick read. loved it. It's Enclave Publishing. I just love their books. I read The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gigg. Whoever told me it was no spice, you lied. Night and Moth, I didn't love the writing. I didn't love the story. I didn't love a lot of it. And then there was swearing, and it has a very explicit scene a couple of times. So yeah, it's a no-go. Do not read that. I don't recommend it. What I do recommend is Thrushbeard by Kate Stradling, which you can see my other video where I talk all about Kate Stradling and my love for her. But Thrushbeard is a short story. You can listen to it on Finding Fantasy Reads podcast, or you can download it for Kindle free. And it is an urban retelling of the Thrushbeard fairy tale. Phenomenally written, very short, very quick read. I think the audio part was like maybe an hour and a half to listen to. Absolutely wonderful. Tells the basic story of Thrushbeard, but set in an urban setting, which was weird, with fae. And so the Thrushbeard character is fae, and it's humans interacting with fae. The fae are in charge of everything and look down upon the humans. It was very, very interesting take on it, and I just really love it. And then I put this here. I put it with fantasy sci-fi because the rest of the series is very sci-fi. Calculated by Nova McBee, and I'm gonna have a whole separate video about this because yeah, I just absolutely love this series. That's why I'm doing this read along for the summer. Go check it out. This is a kind of Monte Cristo retelling, really. Set in Asia with math prodigies and deals with human trafficking. I know it's YA, but there is some very intense concepts, so you know, read with discretion. And then I went down a Terry Blackstock rampage because I read 5 of her books. If I Run, If I'm Found, If I Live, Smokescreen, and Aftermath. And they're all Christian mystery thrillers, and I absolutely loved them. The If I series was great, fun, fugitive vibes for a young woman who is accused of murdering her best friend, and the young man who has been tasked with finding her. So that was a really, really gripping, fast-paced. And so then I read listened to Smokescreen, which is less intense. You follow a divorcee who's Christian, but she's dealing with an alcohol problem because she's dealing with a difficult divorce. Her old flame, whose father murdered her preacher father, comes back from wherever, and he's like an intense firefighter in the California area, and there was a lot going on. It was good. It has a very clear Christian depiction. I love the tackling different things, like tackling alcoholism, not tackling the divorce, dealing with things in a way that is biblical and Christian, and counseling and all of these things. I really appreciate that. Not my favorite story overall, though. But it did have me crying because I'm a mom and there were things with the kids. But yeah, then there was Aftermath, which is... there is a bombing, and you get several points of view. So you get the accused bomber's point of view, you get his lawyer's point of view, and you get a girl who survived the bombing's point of view, and I think there's maybe a couple others. And it all works around to be a fun mystery thriller, which sounds bad given the topic, but it was interesting. And then I read, just gonna keep going, I read 2 Agatha Christie's. I read The Murder at the Vicarage, which was the first in the Miss Marple series. Didn't love it. It was okay. Why are the vicars always the ones helping the police solve the crime? I don't get it. And then like the gossipy old ladies, and it's just weird. It's not Hercule Poirot, let's put it that way. So I'm going to continue Miss Marple, see if there's some others that I like better, because you know the first of something is not always the best. And so I'm going to read some more Miss Marples. And then I read 5 Little Pigs because I needed Hercule, because yeah, 5 Little Pigs makes me kind of wonder about Agatha Christie and her usage of nursery rhymes, because like And Then There Were None is also a nursery rhyme, and she bumps them off based on this. Now what's interesting about 5 Little Pigs is that it is written in retrospect, and when I looked it up, it used to be called Murder in Retrospect, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense, because basically somebody died 16 years ago and their daughter has now asked Hercule to look into it, and so you're getting the narratives and the stories of the other possible suspects and people involved with the family at that time, and you're getting what they said, and then he comes together and puts it together all at the end, and it was very good. And I was so close. I had it down to 2. I always try to see if I can solve the Agatha Christie, and I did not in Murder at the Vicarage. But for 5 Little Pigs, I was down to 2 suspects, and one of them was it. So getting pretty good. And then I read The Blue Castle by Lucy Maud Montgomery, and I am so sad that I did not listen to Chantel and read this last summer when I did my year of Maud. I was like, I'm gonna skip that one. I'm not gonna do it. It doesn't sound that great. It was phenomenal. It is now my favorite Lucy Maud Montgomery. So Chantel, I'm so sorry, because it is just so sweet, so wonderful. You follow Valency, who is a 29-year-old, and she can be very much understood Betsy vibes. Like, she's just been very sheltered, and she's just kind of looked down upon her family, and she's a spinster, but she hasn't really been given a chance to live either. And she's just very deals with a lot of legalism and a lot of selfish behavior of those around her who just don't think of her as a whole person. And then things happen where she thinks she's going to die, and so she starts to live, and it is beautiful. And I love the nature aspects of it. I loved the romance part of it. I just love Lucy Maud Montgomery's turn of phrase so many times. I'm gonna have to, I did this one as audio, and I'm gonna have to buy it and reread it and mark it up, because there were so many beautiful quotes, because it was just such, she just has a way with the words. What can I say? And so yeah, that is what I read, and I am up to 136 books for the school year, for the year. So yeah, I don't know that I have anything else. I didn't add very much to my physical TBR, which is something I'm going to be working on this summer, because I really would love to move past it. So I'm up to here. I'm trying to read all of those. And then I didn't add to George MacDonald this month. I did say Capture the Moment was my favorite book of the month. 30 books total. I didn't add anything to a lot of these different places. For Read Your Bookshelf Challenge, I did The Murder at the Vicarage, which is a title with a place in it, and I did cheat because that's a library book, but it was sitting in my house so long that it feels like it belonged on my bookshelf. And then for Journey Through Time, I did Remember Me with Alma there. I added to my perfect pairings. I finished Ready or Not and Murder at the Vicarage, so I'm adding those to my mystery thriller. This is where I'm doing fiction and a nonfiction. So I had Ready or Not, which talks about a woman who takes over as a mom for her 8 kids, and then I had Risen Motherhood, and then I added Murder at the Vicarage. I'm hoping to read an Agatha biography, and then I added some to my YA. Most of these are middle grade and then YA, or middle grade and then older. And so I added a few titles to that for my things. I did not do Read Your Bookshelf Challenge for the book strings, but I did read one of Shatona Havig's other books. I have almost filled up my trope bingo. I have 2 spots left. I have Fantastical Creatures, which I could have put several things there. I've just been saving it. And Marriage of Convenience. I marked off a couple books on my mother's education. Omnivore's Dilemma, Risen Motherhood, Lives of Kings and Queens, and Selected Poems of Wendell Berry. I got all those done. And then I added to the purple is my different, whatchamacallits, different genres. I read 30 books. I added Blue Castle to my classics. I'm still working on Count of Monte Cristo and Millen's Loss. I didn't add, well, I did. I finished Lamort de Arthur, so I have all these King Arthurs to finish this year still. I have all of my books. So we'll see if I can slow down a little bit this summer. And then I have my May reads and all that I did for May. And I'm getting ready for June. And then I don't think I did anything at the back. I did not do any, I didn't finish my Sanderson, or I did a few pre-reads. I added a few more to my favorite modern women. Got a few more of those done. I didn't finish any more series. I did DNF series. At some point I started Jade City and I finished that, and I forgot to mention that. I'm working on my Christie books, and I'm throwing ephemera everywhere, and I've got my summer ready to go. And so that is my recap for May and all that I have going on. Thank you so much for watching. I know this is a longer video, but I read 30, maybe 31 books. The last book I read was The Road to Paradise by Karen Barnett, and I absolutely loved it. But I'll talk about that in another video, because I technically finished it on June 1st, so we'll put it there. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. You have a blessed day.